to Sunrise. It is 25 minutes to 8, and we are continuing our focus on the development with the abducted girls. Oh yes, that report. The president met with them yesterday. Well, that's what we'll focus on partly today on the program. We're joined now by Professor Ehiedu Iweriebor, who is an expert on African development affairs. He's currently with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Morning, and thank you for coming today.
Morning, thank you very much. Yes.
Well, so many perspectives and matters to focus on this same matter. Perhaps I should start with asking, for you, what is the issue with this?
I think basically the issue regarding the Chibok girls has to be seen in the context of Nigeria's development and the challenges that it faces. The most profound challenge we faced politically in the past few years has been the Boko Haram, terrorism, insurgency, and so on. I also think that we should understand the nature of terrorism, that essentially insurgents are concerned about spectacular and dramatic actions. It's not likely that they will ever be able to achieve the attempt to destroy Nigeria or take over Nigeria or whatever. They can't really achieve that. But they take actions that are intended to create fear, uncertainty, and insecurity, and therefore put the society on the edge at all times.
Doesn't that depend on the corresponding action from society or state, or society and or state?
Oh, it depends very much on the reactions, responses of the state and society. And essentially, I think in the context of terrorism, the state has to organize itself and respond in a very, very robust and effective way, and also mobilize and recruit societal support for this process. I'm not entirely sure we've done that very well. Part of the reason, of course, is that the terrorist upsurge in Nigeria, we have to remember over and over again, it's a new phenomenon in Nigerian culture and history. Whatever we may say about how the state has responded, I think it would be true to say that most Nigerians were actually profoundly shocked by the activities of Boko Haram and the insurgents. That is to say, if you look at ancient Nigerian cultures, which are now probably Christian or Islamic or whatever, we have no tradition of self-immolation. We have no tradition of killing people just because we want to kill people who disagree with us. So I think the Nigerian state, as much as Nigerians for the first few years, were profoundly shocked by this. I mean, we've had religious conflicts in the past, but this particular conflict has a very unique nature. So it took us, I think it took the state time to come to terms with the fact that we're facing a totally new phenomenon, which I actually believe that the Boko Haram strategy is actually another example of cultural import substitution, because it has no place culturally, historically, in our societies.
Is it something you think has come to stay, or is it something that you think will go away over time, considering that more powerful cultures could overpower it?
Oh, I think it's something that has to be addressed very, very carefully. I think on the one hand, the Nigerian state and Nigerian people have to invoke their traditions that actually are hostile to killing people for no obvious reason, and also to deal with people who think they achieve heaven by self-immolation, by committing, by suicide, and so on. So it's a profound problem which has to be dealt psychologically and culturally, and we have to make an effort to educate our people on an ongoing basis that this is a new phenomenon we are facing, and we have to combat it and confront it directly, and attempt to reduce what justifies or what makes people feel that they can take such an action and it's beneficial to them.
The situation is made a little complex. We were speaking with a certain pastor very recently, and he was saying that this particular group has worn the garb of religion, because, I mean, many religions have repudiated this particular sect, saying that it doesn't represent any religion they know. I mean, not Islam, not Christianity, not even the animist, would claim this sort of religion. But they claim, I mean, he says that this particular sect has worn the garb of religion, and has also worn a political garb. And as such, it has made it it's made it almost impossible, or made it a little more complex in terms of how we fight this. So we see it from a political angle, saying that this is something that politicians have come up with. Some also see it from the angle of religion, so some areas or some religions are held in suspicion. How do you think that, we can overcome some of these things and begin to see this as something that is isolated and fight it as such?
Okay, thank you. I think this is a very important question you've asked, because I think the major mistake the country and the various groups, religious groups, have made from beginning regarding this group is this, that we have to understand that we have extremist groups in all religious traditions, and they existed long before now. And people who have different kind of agendas can indeed clothe themselves in the garb of religion and invoke and mobilize people around their agenda. That's something that's always existed. But I think that had we been conscious of the nature of our religions, even in Nigeria, we wouldn't have allowed them to win the upper hand. What do I mean? What is shocking to me as an historian is that Borno, where this is happening, actually is one of the earliest centers of Islamic presence in Nigeria. And anybody who knows Borno's history knows that, in fact, Borno was the center of profound scholarship, profound Islamic scholarship in ancient Nigeria. So when this thing began, I was a bit shocked that Boko Haram could emerge from a culture which has highly established, centuries-old scholarly traditions in Islam. So I think what we will have done religiously, especially from the part of Muslim compatriots, was to identify and separate Boko Haram right away. That it's an aberrant expression, it's an extremist expression, and does not capture the essence of Nigerian Islam. As far as I understand from my studies of Nigerian history and Nigerian religions, there has never been such an expression of extremism in Nigerian religious tradition. Had we done that, this question of suspicions will have been handled better. And I think it's not late. I think we should call upon our people from all climes to understand that this is a very unique and aberrant experience. I insist on that.
Aren't we beginning to see that?
Pardon?
Aren't we beginning to see that? I mean, Muslim leaders coming forward to say this is not Islam. This is, we heard this also.
Yes, it's coming up now, but I'm saying that it's a bit late. It has to be couched in such a way that we understand that Islam in Nigeria is not under suspicion. We should make it very clear. And I don't feel that is coming out clearly. This is not Islam, Muslims against Christians or Muslims against others in Nigeria. We should remember at all times that all Nigerians of whatever faith they have lived in this ancient Nigerian Commonwealth for centuries. We didn't start living together because of British colonialism. But we seem to forget that. We've interacted for a very long time. And part of the challenge of Boko Haram is that it is making people feel as if, in fact, we're just coming together for the first time. But part of the whole challenge is that a group like Boko Haram is organized around an us versus them ideology. It's very efficient for insurgent groups because you have to isolate us against them. And so you can say these are infidels who are Puritans. And so on the one hand, that's a problem. Politically, I think in many ways, the political response has been quite unfortunate because I think that an issue like an insurgency and a terrorism knows no bounds. Boko Haram is an equal opportunity oppressor. It will kill anybody. So this is an occasion in which I believe that all Nigerian political groups ought to have realized that this is a national challenge. It's not a ground for the exploitation of political posturing.
Okay. Well, what's your reading of how this is perceived on the international scene? Because, you have several meetings, because some say, look, it took the international community quite a while before they rallied in support of the country. But yes, you had that meeting in France, you had several countries, intelligence here. At the moment, we're still talking about rescuing the Chibok girls. So could you place a finger on their reading of what the perception is of this matter?
I have to tell you that I come from a very different perspective in relation to the international community. My basic position is that a challenge of this nature is primarily a challenge to Nigeria and her neighbors. And we ought to have taken the initiative right from the beginning to have organized our response in that way. I think I found it a bit disturbing that we had to go to Paris to organize a meeting of our neighbors. For me, that's an expression of a failure of leadership. Nigeria is well known within West Africa as a power, and people respect and will listen to us. We don't need any foreigner to tell us that we should get our people together, because we're equally affected. All neighboring communities in that region are affected, whether it's Chad, Cameroon, Niger, and so on. Today it's Nigeria, but it may spill over.
The news coming out from that particular area was that we were not getting the cooperation that we needed. At least it was not being treated as urgently as it should. And a lot of people also realized the power that former colonial power France still holds over, its former colonial territories, and they figured that that would be one way to secure the urgency of their cooperation. What do you think of that?
No, I mean, I agree with that. We're probably not getting enough cooperation, but that's because we're not doing enough work. We're not doing enough work. We have to accept the consequence of leadership. Nigeria's leadership in West Africa and Africa and globally is inevitable, whether we like it or not. And we have to accept that the consequence of that, we must cultivate our neighbors. We must make an effort, we must establish channels and make efforts to systematically on an ongoing basis relate to our neighbors. We can't do it only when you have a spectacular event. Remember that in spite of all the challenges we have, commercial exchange is still taking place between Nigeria and all of these places. So we have a basis for interaction already.
Okay, so what? Do we then say that your Ministry of Foreign Affairs, failed to take that initiative?
I don't think it's that's a political decision that goes well beyond the ministry itself. Essentially, the ministry will provide advice, but the ultimate choice of a strategy depends on what comes from the top.
Was that advice provided?
Yes, I believe it was provided, yes.